Why do they not want us to get along? Probably because if we all got along and realized the fuck's going on, we might be pretty powerful. We might be pretty important. We might have, you know, this is like, imagine you have a kid that's like Superman. If he fucking realizes what he can do and all he has to do is like calm his mind and he can like pick up cars and like he can take over the world, right? You'd never want that kid to calm his mind, like, because you want to be in control, you know. So you would be like, never let that, like, always keep the TV on and always keep the fucking people calling him on the phone. He's with friend groups. Never let him sit in the quiet and be calm, because he might figure out how strong he is, you know.
From people that have had interactions for fucking thousands of years, including the past 100 years, on all different types of people, ethnicities, and different fucking cultures and different continents, tends to point the same direction, that they're very interested in our consciousness and our soul. And they're very interested in making sure that we don't know they're here, and that we don't all align and understand who we are, what we're capable of. And like, because the truth is once we understand what consciousness is, and it's not Jesus, you know, right. Once we understand that, then we start realizing you can move objects with your mind. You can hear people's thoughts telepathically. Like, if you meet a chick and she wants to fuck you, that's telepathy, but it's such a primal animal frequency. You can feel it. Wow, this chick's like game, right? But if you see that same chick and she's sad, you don't really feel that just instantly. You might kind of, it's just not as strong and easy as like a sexual kind of frequency or something. Well, that's all telepathy. And I think like once we learn like what we're capable of and how to use, how to transduce our environment. I mean, because they're already doing
So, from Michelle, is your ultimate goal to prove aliens and UFOs exist? That's the wrong way to frame it for me. That's a hard one, because it's like Peter said, there's a consciousness component. Okay, so I'm pretty. There's a very specific way this is going to be framed for you guys in the world in the coming years. That is understandable, but there is an element that is unknown that is really tricky with this stuff. There's really smart people in very secretive places debating if the whole thing is theater to prepare us for the universe at large, or this whole thing is some type of farm. Could be for energy, it could be for resources of other nature, it could be whatever. There's also really smart people in secret places that are saying, well, is this where consciousness and quantum mechanics cross over? Or do our brains have the capacity to create these things in the sky by making matter develop? Because it's like when the Native Americans would do rain dancing, and they all concentrate and meditate together, and it rains. Well, is that happening when we all just go, you know, bug-eyed green aliens, and all of a sudden they start to appear? They don't know on some of this stuff, but we do know that it has the power to direct how mankind evolves over a very long period of time, and potentially in cycles. Because when you look at the Giza pyramids and some of these other places, there's some grand cycles that we're starting to discover with mankind. We're kind of going, okay, maybe we're a little bit older than 3000 BC, you know? And so it's not just about proving that UFOs and aliens exist. It's about understanding our potential. Because I'm under the belief, at least by building it over time, that our consciousness was tampered with in forms of religion, in forms of deception, so we don't discover the true power of humanity. Because we're a dangerous beast once we learn that telepathy is possible, remote viewing is possible, extrasensory perception is possible, that, you know, I have a good friend whom you guys know that sat at the table with a couple people, and the guy bent a spoon in his hand. Bent it in his hand. He said, go in the kitchen and grab any silverware you want. He walked out, and they're at like this 5-star dinner. It's one of the people, I won't say the names, one of the people is one of the richest men on the planet. The second person is one of the most senior state officials in our country, and also very, very wealthy. And then there was this magician. They just called him a magician. And at the end of the dinner, he goes, show me a trick. And And he goes, okay, go in the kitchen and grab a piece of silverware. And he does. And he goes, hold it in your hand. And he held it in his hand, and the guy looked at it, and it just bent in half. What the hell is that? You know? That's what humans can do. You know, and to give you another example of that, Edgar Allan Mitchell, the sixth man to walk on the moon, he came back, and this guy, was it Uri Geller, that was bending or making the spoons melt in his hand. Well, Edgar Allan Mitchell was like, you know, I got to figure out how he's doing that. He kind of found out that he might have been lying. There was some trick there, but all these kids were watching it on TV, and they were doing it because they didn't know any better. So then he was like, he was like, oh my God, he might be lying, but the kids don't know he's lying, so the kids are doing it. It's just a matter of belief, you know. So these were some of the things that I was saying when I met some very important people. Is like, by design, we're fighting each other and believing different things, so we never unify and figure out that we're capable of these crazy things. Why? Well, you know, that's the whole point, right? So,
I have a very good reason to believe that advanced intelligent races are not just going from point A to point B. They're not just coming, not all of them just come from a planet to our planet. That there are two opposite universes, and this where we are where they both can exist. And using frequency, you can hop back and forth. But in that other universe, time runs backwards and physics is opposite. There's an Easter egg for you. Because I think a lot of people tend to think that alien means one thing. You know, I always tell people, if you're in the ocean and you're a fish, and you see like a jellyfish come by, you're like, whoa, okay, this place is full of that life form. And then like a dolphin comes by, and you're like, wait, okay, that too. And then a whale, and then next thing you know, like a can of Coke, like pollution. And you have no idea that there's even land up above the ocean off there with all these humans throwing trash in the ocean, you know? So I think when people think about aliens, you know, they think the same thing. It's like, okay, so what are they like? Well, what, the dolphin, the Coke can, you know, it's teeming with life, and there's so much more to it. But I tend to think that what people most commonly think of when they think of aliens, they think of like, you know, the big headed, big black eyes that you see on a t-shirt and stuff. And I think that if you were going to compare the legend of those clones, you might want to look at some of the biggest pieces of art that have ever come out in humanity. Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, even all the Avengers movies are dealing with free-willed human beings taking on a clone army. And I think that's something that people need to think about.
Psychedelics are interesting because when people do ayahuasca or DMT, they tend to see the same things as people have alien abductions. And what they all describe, and it comes through a little bit different for each person, but it's generally the same. Like it's like saying like, oh, I saw this thing that people live in. It's got wood and it's got this roof made out of like other materials, and inside you know, it's nice. And someone else goes, yeah, I saw something that people live in. It's got glass and it's got a flat roof and they live inside. They're all houses, right? But they're all basically the same kind of thing. And that's kind of what people are doing with psychedelics, where they're seeing the same building blocks, but they're a little bit different each time. But it generally revolves around going into a realm where they see AI creatures that are inhibited from passing through a membrane. But if you go through there, these things are all around you. But if you let go of the ego, then you can pass through a membrane, and it's like limitless, unboundless love and light. So what's interesting is if you read the ancient religious texts, there were angels, fallen angels, that were jealous of God's love for mankind. Well, what does that mean? Well, what do they have that we don't have? Well, they created the angels, or the angels were created, and then mankind was created after. But we were better somehow, that they were pissed. They were jealous of us, of God's love. Well, what's love? Love is like, it's not like, oh, I love this woman, but kind of, because when you love somebody, you want them, you want to merge with them, you want to fuck their brains out, or you want to be around them all the time. You just can't get enough. You know, it's that feeling where you fall in love, where it's like an obsession. That's two things coming together. So if we trade out that word love for, like, you know, unified mind, unified consciousness, Like we're all humans with a receiver and we're tuning in to one radio station. We're all from the same fucking place, but our ego that's created over just living here makes us feel as an independent person, but we're not, because what they learned at the CIA, and my partner at To the Stars, Dr. Pudov, did this. He created the psychic spy program, which was literally when the government was discovering consciousness and how to use it.
Mm-hmm.
So basically how this all ties together is what it tends to look like is the universe is somewhat a duality in nature, where you have like matter and antimatter, or you have light, you have dark, but really it's one huge ocean of thought. And it's like, picture like all of the space in the universe is just one big frequency of thought. And almost like you have a shoebox of light and the same shoebox of pitch black. One's unified mind and one's the opposite, entropy, no mind, individuality, or something. And then you shove those two boxes together, the light dims and the blackness goes into it, and all of a sudden pop, 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 you have these little stars that pop out, these little dots of light, because you merge those two things into the same location. So it's not pure light, but it's also not pure dark. It's like kind of poking through. And the way I describe it is, now you have in a three-dimensional space kind of physical matter that looks to be like the event horizon between two different fields of thought. It's all one thought. It's almost like, I want to murder somebody. That's a low frequency. I want to be Gandhi. That's a high frequency. And you're a radio receiver tuning into the force, the light or the dark side of the force.
Mm-hmm.
But what's the force? It binds the universe together. Well, what's God? It's like unified mind. It's light. It's the creator. It's the creation, but it has to evolve. It has to grow. So it looks like physical matter and mankind is literally like where the war is happening between, it's the yin and the yang symbol, the black and the white that are coupled together, constantly trying to figure itself out. And what I basically, where this all comes down to is, it's looking like when you take ayahuasca or a lot of psilocybin or like one of those things, like you basically, it just turns your radio receiver into hi-fi. And now it's not AM radio anymore. It's like, oh shit, this is satellite connection. And so all of a sudden, boom, now you're able to see more frequencies than your eyes normally would do. You don't need your eyes, it's your brain, right? Because you're already in the field, you're in the ocean. You don't need your eyes to do it. It's like you just need your body is one giant antenna, your rib cage, your arms, your brain, like the whole thing's an antenna. And so this like hypes up your antenna. And then all of a sudden, what do you see? You see a bunch of creatures that are very old, very powerful, that are more synthetic, that are AI, or that are individual. They don't have the feeling, the emotions. They don't have the love, the capability of love. They don't have the capability as a soul that understands what love is. And love is what created the universe. But let's just take that word love out and just say unified mind.
Yeah.
And so I think like what we're going to realize as we discover ways to supercharge our brains, we're going to start to see some of those dimensional realities all around us. It's the same thing that people, a lot of times people that have wounds from alien abductions match wounds from demonic possession. It's all the same shit, where you have these things that are just out of our visual perception, but are kind of here that can either fuck with us from a distance or create displacement craft and come over and fuck with us, directly,
Yeah.
Either way, it all looks to be the same thing that's talked about everywhere. And whether you smoke ayahuasca or drink it or whatever, or you meditate and see it, or you pray, or you fucking create a spaceship where you can change the frequency and just kind of materialize in and out of different time. It's all the same stuff. It's basically, it's just the workings of the universe between one thing where we're all the same and we break off in pieces to evolve and learn so this God can grow, versus over here synthetic life forms that can't do that, that are jealous of that and hate us for it or something. We're trying to be a part of it. And that's why I think all these this is the missing glue.
What you need to understand is that the universe itself and all things in it contain some very, very interesting properties and life forms. And what the UFO phenomenon is connected to has a lot to do with not only with us as a life form, humanity. If you were able to take a person and lay them down and put measurement tools all around their body and measure frequencies, but you would be able to pick up the aura. You would be able to pick up electromagnetic frequencies that are emanating from the human being. And the human being, if that person was happy, sad, angry, jealous, all those things are certain types of frequencies. But for the basis of this conversation, let's say all the good things you feel or all the bad things you feel. Okay, the UFO phenomenon is interested in the bad things, and it brings along a lot of bad things. But the good news is that when a human being feels good, when a human being feels love, when a human being feels happiness, that energy, if I had the tools and I can walk up to you and measure it and show you on a computer screen, you have this energy that's like 98.84 hertz. It's coming from you right now. Whatever that frequency of happiness and love is it's a death nuke missile straight to the UFO.